way up north from here, up in Northumberland, there is a great castle called Bambrough Castle, which sits atop a great cliff and looks out to sea. Nowadays, people flock from all over to visit it. But I want to take you back to a time when people fled from the land all around it. Although, to tell the tale properly, I need to go back just slightly further, to when the king sat on his throne in the castle. King Ida was his name, and he had a beautiful, beloved wife, who gave him 2 children, Childwind, eldest son, and Margaret, their daughter. And life was happiness and joy, and all was at peace, until the Queen died, and a great sadness was cast over the land. Childwind decided to travel across the sea to the land of the Vikings, to seek his fortune and become a warrior. The king, in his great sadness, neglected his duties, and Princess Margaret, beloved of the courtiers and the people, looked after the land. The king tried to occupy his time, take his mind off the loss of his beloved wife, by competing in tourneys and jousts and going hunting in the woods with his fellows. He would hunt deer by bow and arrow. He would hunt boar with boar sword. And he would capture small game like hare and rabbits. It was on one of these hunting trips when he was sat with his fellows around a campfire eating a meal of venison, when he met a strange and beautiful lady, the Lady Bihock. He was instantly bewitched by her, and he fell in love. So much so that he married her there and then in the forest among his fellows, round a campfire, not as a king should in a great castle. Then he journeyed home with his wife to present her. The king sent a messenger on before him, so all could be prepared. Princess Margaret was so excited to meet her new stepmother that she busied the cooks cooking. She got the jugglers ready with their juggling, and the minstrels were minstrelling. All was good. And when the king and the now Queen Bihock rode into the courtyard, Princess Margaret was there to greet them with smiles and glad tidings. The Queen greeted her new stepdaughter with a smile, but behind that smile lurked a cold heart. She hated the princess and was determined to do all she could to get rid of her. Many weeks passed, and the castle seemed to be full of light and joy. Nothing could break the king's bubble of happiness. One day, the Queen persuaded Princess Margaret to journey with her to a strange cave she had heard of. A cave full of jewels and wonders. But when they got there, when they got inside, the cave seemed like an ordinary cave. It was just full of damp walls and water dripping from stalactites, with moss and mushrooms growing all round. But the Queen persuaded Margaret to come deeper and deeper into the cave, until she was right in the centre of it, stood under a strange shaft of light. When the Queen started to walk round her, saying, "I will ye be a loathsome beast, and nevermore shall ye be seen. I will ye be a loathsome beast, and nevermore shall ye be seen. I will ye be a loathsome beast, and nevermore shall ye be seen." Suddenly, in a clap of thunder, Princess Margaret disappeared. Not only did she disappear from sight, she disappeared from memory. Nobody in the castle, not even her own father, could remember the Princess Margaret. But it was about this time that a strange worm wrapped itself around Spindleston Hueg, or hill. I say worm. It was more like a snake or dragon. It was huge. It had ferocious teeth and mighty scales, and it was hungry. As it uncurled itself from the hill, it went searching for food, and it found a flock of sheep, and chop, 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 it ate some lambs. But it was still hungry, so chop, 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 it ate sheep. It went further into the fields, and chop, 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 started eating cattle. It grew bigger and bigger and hungrier till it ventured into the villages, where it smashed down the fences in the farms and started eating pigs and full hen houses of hens and cattle and everything it could get its teeth on. When shepherds and farmers tried to stop it, chomp, 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 it ate them up too, and it grew and it grew and it grew. Many people tried to kill it, but it just killed more and more people. It soon became known as the Loathsome Worm and was terrorising the whole kingdom. The tale of this beast spread far and wide, and knights and men-at-arms journeyed all the way to Bambrough to try and defeat it. But its breath was so rancid it could destroy crops and make a grown man faint who smelt it. Its teeth were so sharp they could chomp through anything, and its body so strong it could crush armour. Many were killed trying to defeat it. It seemed like there was no one who could kill this beast, but news was spreading far and far and far till it reached across the seas to where Childe Wynd, eldest son of King Ida, was there fighting with the Vikings. And once he heard about this beast terrorising his homeland, he was determined to return home and destroy it. But before he did, he decided to seek advice from the old man who lived in the woods. He journeyed deep into the woods, where an old wise man was said to live, in a hole in the ground. And he called out, old man, come out of your hole. Old man, I need your wisdom and your guidance. Won't you help me, please?" The old man crawled out of his hole and coughed and spluttered and said, "This beast, this monster, this worm sounds like dark magic. The only way to protect yourself from dark magic is with the wood of the rowan tree. The rowan tree is good magic, is light magic. It will protect you." So Childe Wynd called forth his fellows, and they journeyed deep into the forest, where they searched till they found the largest rowan tree. Then with their axes they chopped down the tree, and with their swords they sawed it into planks, and then they hammered it into a Viking longboat. All was ready for their journeying back to the homeland, but there was a small bit of the rowan wood left over. So one of Childe Wynd's faithful men took it and carved it into a beautiful scabbard, presenting it to Childe Wynd, saying, "My lord, take this scabbard. I hope it brings you protection on your quest." Once the ship was ready, they all clambered on board and they set off for Bambrough. But as they got near the coast, the Queen from her watchtower looked out to sea and saw the vessel. She called her imps of the sea and sent them out on a great wind to attack the longboat. But they couldn't get near. No, they could not, because the boat, the keel, the mast and the oars were all made of rowan wood. So the ship landed safely on the beach, and the men all clambered out, and they set off up Spindleston Hill, When they'd gone just a couple of paces, Childe Wynde turned to his men and said, "No, stop. I go alone. This is my fight. It's my land. You wait here. If I die, avenge me. But I must fight alone." Despite how his men begged him not to try alone, he was determined and went off to fight the worm. Childe Wynde had left his fellows down on the beach, and he made his way up the side of Spindleston Hill, up to where the great loathsome worm waited. He had fear in his heart, but he knew he must continue. Only he could kill this monstrous creature. As he neared the caves on the side of Spindleston Hill, he heard a great rumbling, and then suddenly the beast came out of the caves and reared up before him. With his bow in his hand and his arrow in another, he pulled back his bow and aimed it right between the beast's eyes. Between those green eyes of the beast. Something about those eyes seemed familiar to him. And then to his amazement, the beast spoke in a great, low, rumbling voice. "Oh, quit your sword, unbend your bow, and give me kisses 3. Though I am a loathsome worm, I'll do no harm to thee." Childe Wynde stayed his hand, but he did not know what to think. Surely this was some kind of witchery. And then the beast spoke again. "Oh, quit your sword, unbend your bow, and give me kisses 3. If I'm not won by set of sun, I never shall be free." Now this was no mean task. For a beast so hideous as this, with breath so revolting it could melt crops and make grown men weak. But something in the monster's pleading melted Childe Wynde's heart. And the monster was so vile and so disgusting, but looked so earnest in its pleas, that Childe Wynde took a deep breath and kissed it. Oh, its skin was so slimy and scaly and disgusting. And the beast said, 3 kisses. So Childe Wynde took another deep breath and kissed it again. Still nothing happened. Still the beast was foul. And in that low voice, it repeated, 3 kisses. Childe Wynde took a deep breath and kissed it for a 3rd time. Suddenly, with a sudden hiss, the creature started to melt away. Scales started to fall from its skin. It started to shrink and grow smaller and smaller and smaller. And where the beast had been, there was Childe Wynde's sister, the Princess Margaret. He quickly wrapped her in a cloak, and they left that place and hurried back to their home, back to Bambrough Castle. When they reached the castle keep, they found the Queen Bihoc waiting for them in the courtyard. She laughed and said, "Ha! You can't harm me." Childe Wynde said no word. He just drew his sword and ran straight towards her. With his sword held aloft, she stood her ground. But in the final moment, as he reached her, instead of striking her with his sword, he spun round and hit her with his sword scabbard. The scabbard made of rowan wood. And in that moment, when she was touched by the rowan wood of good light magic, she hissed and started to melt and shrink and get smaller and smaller and smaller till she was the size of a toad. She was a toad, and with a croak, rah, she hopped away down a drain, down to the castle dungeons, never to be seen again. From that day on, the king, his son and daughter lived long and happy, prosperous lives, and the whole kingdom flourished. As for the queen, well, it's said that the enchantment can be broken if some foolish or stupid man was to kiss a toad on Christmas Eve night. So please, If you do go to Bambrough Castle on Christmas Eve and you do happen to see a toad and it does happen to beg you for a kiss, please, 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 please don't kiss the toad.